So what I've got on the screen now is the integration into an instance of ServiceNow. And before we kind of wander through that, I mentioned at the top of the call that this was a no-code approach to the integration. So what I can do is I can click on the instance of ServiceNow. I can go down to configure import, for example. And what we're looking at is I can start adding the classes or the data that I want to start pulling from ServiceNow into uControl. And I can activate the ones I'm interested in. It tells me what data we've last imported, and it's telling us whereabouts in uControl we're using that data. So at the start of the webinar, we went through the dashboards and the gap analysis. We see that we're using data from ServiceNow to drive those gap analysis dashboards. The other thing we also do is synchronize data into ServiceNow. So if I click on to configure synchronization, and what we have here is all of the data that we're pulling from uControl. So we have our data structure in uControl. We've selected those, and we're saying basically what data do we want to push into ServiceNow. And if I go and select host as an example, we go click on host. And from that, I can go, let's have a look at the classes that we're sending this to. So as we can see, by default out of the box, we are breaking this down into the different classes that we're sending things to. So anything that doesn't match goes to the default base class of CMDB CI server. Everything else is broken down into the appropriate table within ServiceNow. And what you can do through this UI is you can add your own. So if you want to change these or where they go to, you can add your own classes, your own custom ones in. You can change where we're going to with uControl. Do all of that out of the box. So if I go to Linux, for example, I can go, what are the fields that we're sending? So when we populate the data into ServiceNow, these are the attributes we're taking from uControl, and this is where they're going to in ServiceNow. So I can add attributes, I can delete them, I can change where they go to, all inside of here. I can look at the rules. So basically, what are we looking for in our data to ensure that we send hosts to that class in ServiceNow? So we're looking for all things that have an OS type like Linux. Again, I can come to here, I can click on it, I can change that rule, I can add to it. So I change where things are going to. I can also change relationships. So by default, when we send data, we are going to create this type of relationship inside of ServiceNow. I can add to those relationships, I can change them. Everything's been made easy so that when you populate and synchronize data in, you can be as configurable as you want all through the UI without having to kind of write any code or updates. And one of the big important ones is the IRE information. So for IRE, we use the IRE API into ServiceNow, which means we reconcile all of the data that we're sending in. We don't cause any duplicates based upon using any other API. And when you connect uControl to ServiceNow, it pulls those IRE rules into here, tells you what they are. So you see the preference or the order that's been configured in ServiceNow, the attributes that are being used for the IRE rules, that it's active, what tables in ServiceNow it's pulling or writing that data to, and it validates that against our data that we have in uControl. So we can understand before we even send stuff, are we going to match those RE rules, or do we have data or information that won't be sent over based on that? And if you update this in ServiceNow, it automatically updates the IRE rules in uControl for you. So we can see that we're saying that basically for these classes, our data matches the IRE rules, it's valid, and therefore we know that when we're syncing stuff, it's going to populate over to ServiceNow. So then what I can come to do is we're going to come back to here, and we're going to go back to synchronization. And we're going to go to our synchronization nodes. So this gives me a list of all my hosts and is saying to me these are the things that we can send over and sync to ServiceNow and when they were last successfully sent. And before we sync them, I just want to highlight this MCR WebDev 03 is one of the ones. We're going to flick into ServiceNow. This is my list of hosts, and we have 02. I just want to show that we don't have that 03 currently in our list. But more importantly, we do currently have CLM AIS, and we have this WesDAV 01. These are the two hosts that we do have here, and we have those in uControl and in ServiceNow already. The important thing being, if you look at this, they've been created in ServiceNow. They haven't been synced via our integration from uControl. And if I click into one of these, we can see that basically it is just a shell. It has the name, has some very basic data, has no relationships, not related to anything at all. So when we sync this data from uControl, using the IRE rules, this will marry up to the data. It will enrich things that are already in there, and it will create the things that are missing. So if we click on this one, that one, and that one, and we're going to do synchronize, and then we're going to push that data over into ServiceNow, and we can see that data is syncing over for us. You can see that it's gone over, and if I go and look into here, we can see that we've now got, for this host that I'm still on, it tells us that we've updated it. We had just a serial number in the name. We've now populated manufacturer data. We've now populated information around the box itself, and you can see, more importantly, we'll start having data come through and into here as it does the synchronization for us. We can see that we've now added Devo 3, which wasn't there before. If I click into that host, we can see we've got data about the host, and more importantly, you can see that we've got applications that are in here. So we've actually synced across all the software. We've synced relationships over to chassis that we run on. So the synchronization takes relationships and it takes CIs, pushes that over for you. And we can see with this one, we've also got a business application. So we've built a business service map in uControl. We've used data from all our data integrations to build that. And if I was to go and click over this to my app production, we can see from here that we're using two hosts, Windows hosts and a server chassis that sits inside of here. And I can go and start clicking through ServiceNow into my dependency views, and I can start making use of all the data that we're syncing from uControl. So I can start getting a picture of, here are my services, here's my applications, and that all fits into the whole UMAP world of uControl, and building out your business applications and your services side. So what we've seen from there is an integration to ServiceNow. We can take all the data from other data sources into uControl. We can do things like our analysis and analytics. We can publish things like service maps and application maps, and we can then sync that data back into a CMDB like ServiceNow. We enhance data that's already there. We add data that's maybe missing, and then we create all of the relationships to enable you to build up your business service catalog and service maps inside of your ServiceNow instance.